In this video, we'll talk about implicit and explicit type conversions within C#. Now, a type conversion is when you need to take a value and turn it into a different type of value. In this case, in our examples here, we're going to be working with bytes and integers. Now, bytes can only accept values to 255, and integers can accept values much, much larger. So you can expect whenever we have a large value in an integer, if we were to try and convert that to a byte, or add two bytes together, what will we get? How would C# respond? So those are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in this video. So we have several short examples here just to demonstrate some of the concepts. The first one we have is where we have a value of byte of value 1 equals 123 and byte equals 134. Now when you add these two together, that's 257, which is larger than 255, the largest value that can fit into a byte. So what will happen? Well, what we've done is define another byte value, value 3, that will add these two together. However, as the comment notes, this example won't work as we go to run it. And let's just go and run it and find out what it does. And we'll explain why. Okay, now notice that it won't even compile. It says it cannot implicitly convert type int to byte. Well, okay, we see this little squiggly line here, can't implicitly convert into byte. Well, what happens here? Well, the reason is because whenever you add two bytes together, an implicit conversion happens within C#. And since we have an integer and we're trying to assign that to the value of a byte, we can't do that conversion. It does not work. So it won't even allow us to do this. So let's go ahead and comment this out. What we'll do instead is go to the next example, which is almost identical. And in this case, we'll go ahead and add these two together, and we'll see the implicit conversion actually work, where we've defined a value 3 as integer, and when we add these two together, what happens? So this time we'll go and build our solution. And we call up our command prompt, and here we're going to type in CS2314 and hit enter. And we notice that we get the value 257. So since it is in an integer, and since these two bytes, when you added them together, are implicitly converted into an integer, we have no problem. We can represent the value 257 and print it out. In fact, there's another type conversion that happens here. This is a more explicit type conversion, and it's called a toString. So there's a method that will convert our integer into a string for the purpose of printing out, because our console.write line doesn't know how to handle integers. It knows how to handle strings. So just a different type of conversion that we can explicitly state. So here's the next little example. What we do here is we have the value, an integer, a super large value, 57,500, because when we try to assign it to a byte, we'll see what occurs. So what we're going to do is take 57,000 and try to convert it to a byte and place it into value 2. Then we're going to print out value 2. Let me change that. Okay? So let's go ahead and compile this. And then we're going to run our application again, CS2314. And notice what happens here. Value 2 equals 156. Well, that's very strange because the value that we sent in was 57,500. How did it get converted to 156? Well, basically, the byte can't handle 57,500. It can handle 255. So it takes all the values that were overflowed and just disregards them. It doesn't return an error. It doesn't error out. But instead it just does what it can, and it takes the values that are left over from dividing 255 into 57,500, and then allows you to work with that number instead. Now we're going to find out in the next video regarding checked and unchecked conversions, and see how to change our application so that we can either force errors to occur when this situation happens, or we can ignore them or handle them in different ways. But it's just important for you to understand that your application by default will not error out if you try this type of explicit conversion. We have one last example for the purpose of this demo, and that is kind of similar to what we talked about before with the toString. We can do a explicit conversion to from an integer, or from a string rather, into an integer. So here we have a string of 500, and then we want to parse it into an integer and then add 45. So if we just took a string of 500 and then we try to add 45 to it, there would be basically we'd have a mess on our hands, because we'd have two different types that are trying to be combined together. But what this is able to do is take our string and convert it into an integer, and then do the addition, and then write it out. And again, the toString, another type of explicit casting or conversion that goes on. So let's go ahead and save this and run build. And we'll try this one more time. And notice that it indeed comes out with a value of 545. These are some pretty important issues as you're working with C# to understand how types work, how type conversions work, because there will be a lot of times whenever you're trying to make good decisions on how to do math or how to work with the different variable types, and you'll need some background information like this to make good decisions. So I hope you enjoyed this video.